So I watched the Roadhouse remake yesterday. Now I've never seen the original Roadhouse, so I can't personally compare. Like I can't say how it compares to the original. At some point I watched the original, but I can't really say if it compares if it's a good remake or a bad remake or a great remake to the original. Like I did go online and look up certain things about the original, but I'm not gonna try to make this review about like how it compares to the original because I've never seen the original. So as a movie, somebody who's never seen the original, I thought this was a fun movie. It's not great, and it like it's not one of those movies that I'm gonna go back and rewatch again. But I was entertained enough by this movie. Positives, as I think Jake Gyllenhaal is great in this movie. He has a very natural charm to him, and he just makes his character likable. At the same time, I kind of like the fact that he showed he had a little bit of a dark side with his character, which I liked. Was has the time the UFC backstory they gave this version, but I thought he was very likable, charming as a character. There's some funny one-liners in the movie. Like I think it was funny when he beats when he's like slapping a couple of the henchmen in one scene, and he takes him to the hospital, and he's like saying, "Oh, I broke that guy's arm." I thought he had a natural funny charm about his character in the movie. Like yeah, some of it's cheesy, but some of the cheesiness kind of worked for me personally. So and also I can tell he got in shape. Like he definitely got in shape, especially if you're gonna give this person like a UFC backstory. And when it comes to UFC backstory, I like that, but I also felt like it didn't get. It was like they barely touched on it. I'll talk about it in my negatives, but I think he was great in the movie, and I did really like this version of the character. When it comes to, I also like the character Frankie to go to Heism. I thought she was a likable character in the movie, and I think him and her actually had like good back and forth when it comes to chemistry between the two characters. Obviously, they were just friends in the movie, but I like the Frankie character too. And then I thought some of the Aston looked good, but I also kind of had an issue with the Aston at times too because I do like how they try to do something new with Aston scenes in this movie. And there's like moments where I think it looks good, but there's other times where I felt like they try to just like speed. They try to do something when they sped up the Aston, and it just didn't always work for me. I'll talk more about it in the negatives about that. And I would say it's just overall a fun, cheesy entertainment movie. It does feel like a throwback Aston movie to like old Aston movies, which I liked. The negatives with this movie is that it does get really over the top towards the end. It gets kind of like Fast and Furious level towards the end where I feel like, okay, this is getting a little too ridiculous now. Like the Aston towards the end, I was like, okay, this is a bit too ridiculous. And the CGI looked wonky at times with the Aston scenes. And then the Aston scenes where they were trying to do the sped up thing, and this is what I'm talking about. Like they try to do this new thing with this point of view where you're really close into the Aston, and then they will kind of speed it up where the Aston will be moving fast. And there's times where it looks good, like I said, but there's other times where I'm like, it looks CGI and it's kind of like it just didn't. It looked fake to me. Like I appreciate the fact that the director was trying to do something different with Aston scenes, but it also didn't work for me a lot of times too. What he tried to do, so it's kind of like I missed feelings about the Aston in this movie, and a UFC element with the Dalton character. The storyline with that UFC stuff, they try to do like flashbacks where he's having dreams about what happened, and I felt like they could have really fleshed it out more, and they kind of dragged it out in my opinion because you don't get really a resolution to that. It just basically goes nowhere. Like there's a scene later on where the girl, the love interest in this movie, where she's like saying to him, I saw, we have the internet, Daddy. I know who you are, and they never really explored enough. It kind of, like I said, it gets dragged out towards the end, and it doesn't really go anywhere either. So it's like they bring this up and they don't do anything with it. Because I like the UFC element of the story, but they don't really like go anywhere with it. And you're left to assume what happened to the guy that fights. You're left to assume that, that I'm assuming that he killed the guy by accident is what I'm guessing. but you don't. Again, they don't really go do a deep dive into that stuff. It's just kind of like they brush it aside, and it, like I said, it doesn't go anywhere. And look, not and some of the cheesiness doesn't always work for me. There's times where I think it's really, where I do find it to be really funny in a movie and fun and cheesy in a good way. But there's other times where I'm like, like I said, towards the end, it gets a little too goofy and ridiculous for me. And Conor McGregor, I think that's the name of the guy who's a fighter in real life, and this was his first acting job. He was awful in this movie. The bad guy. I just think he gave a very like over the top, ridiculous performance that just felt out of place in this movie. So I can't say I really enjoyed him as a bad guy in this movie. And the love interest in this movie. I'll be honest, I didn't care for the love interest movie. It felt like the girl who played the love interest was just there to be a love interest. They were just like, oh, we gotta have a love interest in these movies because it's like the cliche thing where it's like in ass movies, you gotta give the character a love interest. And I felt like I didn't care for that at all. And I also feel like her and Jake Gyllenhaal had zero chemistry. Like to me, I preferred the Frankie character way more. Like the Frankie character was personally for me more fun and interesting and had more personality. I thought the love interest in this movie, the actress, and this is no offense to the actress, she might be good at her stuff, but her character was just very kind of bland and boring to me. And like I said, she just was. I feel like they just had her in there just so they could give Dalton a love interest and no reason to basically kill some of the bad guys. And I would say that's another thing. Even though I do like the darker edge to his character, it does feel a little. It does feel maybe a little jarring towards the end there when it kind of switches to a darker. When you see him kind of go darker the character, because it's still like cheesy and fun in the first two. For the first act and like most of the second act, and then it kind of shifts to that darker as the kid. I like that, but it also felt just a little bit jarring. So overall, I thought this was a fun movie. Look, it's not fantastic, but I think it's worth checking out. It's like if you're looking for just a cheesy, over the top, ridiculous throwback action movie, I would recommend it. I would say just going with the expectations that look, this is not a deep movie. The characters aren't like the best characters in the world. The story isn't the greatest story in the world, but at the end of the day, most of the cheesiness worked for me personally, and I had a fun time with the movie. So that's my thoughts on Roadhouse 2024.